This is willpower.
Good morning to everyone. We're here at the Wellpower podcast, and I'm so fortunate to be sitting in the airwaves with Dr. Mark Sherwood. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Kristen, thanks for having me. I've been looking forward to this. We finally got it done.
I know we've been navigating schedules quite a bit. I wanted to, part of this beauty of the podcast is that we get to have these conversations where I actually get to know you. I've read a lot about your work, and really just to speak to the listeners for a moment, wanted to really bring someone on in a medical capacity, a doctor who really understood, doctor of naturopathy, and understood the power of molecular hydrogen, and have a conversation and maybe a bit of a deeper dive in the ways that you have used this as a tool in your life. But before we jump into that, I want to hear a little bit more about you so I can get to know all about the wonders of your practice. And the thing that I was just reading on the site that maybe you could unpack in your intro, which is your mission to eradicate all self-imposed, chance-driven disease conditions. It's such an interesting and beautiful statement that evokes questions and makes me feel like we're really aligned. But I would love for you to sort of talk about what your work is like in the world. And, you can mention you and your lovely wife get to work together. I love that.
Yeah, my wife, I like to refer to her as not my spare rib, but my prime rib. And so people love that. So ladies, if you're listening, make sure your husband takes that line and runs with it. We both have very unique backgrounds, and we do get to work together every day here at the Functional Medical Institute in Tulsa, where I am now. Just super brief, my history is a little bit of unconventional, let's say. I was a former professional baseball player years ago in the country of Australia. So a little bit fun fact, did you know? And then after that, my career in America did not take off like I dreamed it would. Despite being Rookie of the Year over there, that didn't translate to a dream job over here. So I had to do something else with my life. And so I became a police officer for a couple of decades, a little plus, and I was on the SWAT team. And so that really set me up for understanding, Kristen, that there are issues that we all face in our world that can affect us in a negative way, or if we respond, they can shape us in a positive way. So again, I treasure those experiences I had, even though it seems unrelated to what I'm doing right now. It's very relatable to what I'm doing right now as well. And then during that time, what kind of got me into what I'm doing now as a traditional naturopathic doctor is that I was put in charge of a wellness program that didn't exist. And so when you start a program from scratch, you really have to understand the problem at hand. And so the problem at hand that I was faced to deal with was the lack of lifespan for police officers, law enforcement personnel, first responders, even military. And it wasn't very long. It was about 66 years of age. And that shocked me. And so I went on this mission to figure out why. I was curious. I want to know, why are people dying? And then I quickly realized that the same things that were shortening the lives of our men and women in blue was shortening the lifespans, if you will, of people everywhere. And so my curiosity, I guess, the whys that I had in my life led me down the pathways of naturopathy to try to understand the root causes of disease processes. And I really wanted to understand, why are we so sick and getting sicker in our nation? Why is America this capital of sickism, as I call it right now? We are more unhealthy now than ever in the history of mankind's existence. And it's not getting better, it's getting worse. And I really wanted to understand why. And so that got me on this mission. We've written several books, and one of the first books we wrote was A Quest for Wellness. That was the title of the book. And the reason I wrote that, because I was on a quest myself along with my wife, and she is an osteopathic doctor and also a naturopath as well. So we combine all those into one area. And then that's led us to where we are right now. And we've been really blessed and really fortunate. We've suffered a lot of hard knocks. We get back up again. and we keep asking the question why, and to keep learning. That's what's kept us going, to realize we don't have it figured out. I am a person that wants to understand life, all about it. I question everything in life. I don't believe things just because I'm told them, and I don't believe a study just because I read the headline. I want to understand it in a way that is relatable to mankind. And to your point about our mission here is to lead people on a pathway of true healing, whatever that means for them. And I believe that wellness is more than just not being sick. It is really about being able to do what you want, when you want, how you want, as long as you want, and not hurt, And I think that's a good way to look at it, right? And there's two purposes in our mission statement. And one, you noted, was to eradicate all self-imposed, choice-driven disease processes. And the second one is to eliminate all unnecessary use of medication. And the second one's pretty obvious. We're depending on medication to bring healing, and that doesn't do that. It brings modification and management. That's it. And the first one is a little more complex, but I really believe that our lifestyle processes, what lack of control of them, I should say, is, in my assessment, is 90% or better the direct cause of our current disease processes that include these diseases of our modern day, which are type 2 diabetes, which I do not think needs to exist in one single person anywhere on planet Earth, heart disease, which is very, very preventable and modifiable, cancers, Alzheimer's, dementia, autoimmune conditions, and even osteoporosis. I think that these 6 things are just absurdly exploding in our world and in our country, unnecessarily so. So it was a little bit of a longer answer to a short question, but it kind of brings us to where we are.
No, it's beautiful. It speaks to, it's like there's no political agenda here, but it speaks a bit to some of the complacency that's come on, I think, through, medicine as a Band-Aid, or let's just say maybe it's pharmaceutical. And again, like I've been speaking to a lot of people in the wellness space. That's what this podcast is all about. And, it's never about, I'm not poo-pooing the advancements that exist, that there are moments that we really need interaction or interventions, that are going to change the game for someone who's really in a tough spot. And that's beautiful. And what I love about everything that you just said is sort of the underpinning that it's about lifestyle choice. It's about choosing the best health for ourselves, which is really an autonomous thing that I continue to talk about and love that this is a big tenet for you and your platform and your mission, because it's I even have this with my mother. I'll tell her something 20 times and then someone tells her in a white lab coat or whatever, and then she'll listen. And it's not, this isn't to shame my mother. She's amazing. And also, how it works with, parents and kids. It's always like that. Yeah. And so it's really interesting to navigate that for everyone. I think the other interesting thing for me is just, I wonder if there's a piece of you and in the world of giving advice to people who are listening that comes off of, I can only imagine, I've never been a football player to that level or any level, that there's a discipline there. And I imagine that you're going through, police training school. There's a discipline there, and that there is a transferable skill in the things that you've done in your life that make it so that you can have some choice and really stick to your own integrity, right? On making lifestyle choices that really work for you, and then modeling that for your patients. Do you feel like there are, I don't want to call them hacks. I just mean, what are the key things that you and your wife do, either with your patients or just in your own lives, that are bolstering the stick-to-itiveness, right? The stickiness, I sometimes say with a client, of keeping the lifestyle choices at a high level. I mean, besides the fact I keep them at a level because I know when I do, I'm a bit healthier, but it's not that cut and dry for most people.
It's not, Kristen. And there are things that we sort of promote, teach, that help people go from where they are to maybe where they want to be. And I wish it was as simple as turning on a light switch. It's not, because you've got all this life that is, life is not a one-dimensional linear thing. It's like a psychedelic mushroom trip, it's all over the place, man. And it's like 4-dimensional plus. And And life is hard. You look at a person's life from the standpoint of their relational health, their economical health, their emotional health, their age, their physical abilities or disabilities, where they live, and all this stuff matters. But there are a few things that I've learned to embrace, let's say, and one is the term discipline. I believe that you nailed it with that. I am one. There's two ways to look at this, and I think people relate to this. There's this intrinsic motivation, which is in our heart. It's in us. It's something that is not driven by anything outside of us. It's something we embrace because we know that it's right, or we know it's good, or we know it's beneficial. We just do it because we know internally we should. And then there's external or extrinsic motivators. People today are driven for the most part by extrinsic motivators, that the doctor told me I now have to exercise. The doctor told me I now have to eat better. The trainer told me I need to work harder. I need you to give me something to motivate me. I need you to reward me somehow. And all this stuff is external, and it doesn't stick. It doesn't work. It might get one started, but it's not the things that drives a human being. I look at life like this, and this helps me internalize it. Life is too short to be sick too long. Lifespan is something that you define as how much life or years in the life or quality of the life in that life do you want? And I use sort of this analogy to sort of drive that point home. There is an expectation right here in our country that life is a sort of this reverse bell curve. It starts off and then it climbs up a little bit and then it starts to trail off. And that is the life period or the lifespan. That last 10 years is full of medications and somebody bringing stuff to you, and you can't get down the floor and play with your grandkids because you're too weak to get back up again. You become very small in your world. Your world gets tiny. You don't travel as much. You stop asking questions. You stop learning. I don't want that. And if people are listening right now and you don't want that, you say, I don't like that. That sounds horrible. Everybody experienced that in other people. Then you got to decide, I'm going to embrace a couple disciplines. And to do that, I am one that says you got to start off the day with small little bitty habits that really mean something. And it's going to sound a little nutty and quirky, but I'm telling you it will work. When you get up in the morning, make your bed. Just simply make your bed. If you come home to clutter, that's a cluttered mind. Pick up trash off the floor. Clean your stuff. Be an orderly person in your home. Nobody else goes there but you and your close people. And then you all have that closet that's all a mess that you don't let anybody in. Don't have that closet, man. Don't be a clutter person. Make the bed, put your stuff up, get a list and prioritize that list. And so I get up and I usually have a cup of coffee, organic and mold free, of course. Then I'll do a prayer or meditation. I just get quiet, and then I'll go to the gym and I will exercise. And when I'm exercising, I put something in my ears that I'm listening to try to spur my education or motivation. And I do all that to prepare myself to go into what I do now to help people. So it's about service, but the service has got to come from the inside out. And I can't serve other people and be what I need to be for Kristen on this podcast. I can't be that unless I'm taking truly care of myself and trying to display something of an example in life for other people. Those seem like basic things, but basic is important to starting good, predictable habits. Because if you're not predictable, you can't be reproducible and you become untrustworthy, not just other people, but yourself.
Yeah. That's so beautifully put. And this is something that I think you say, this is basic, but it's also the reality is that it's the thing that falls away first. Yep. When people are in higher stress loads, busy schedules, work, whatever it might be, it's the thing that I see with clients I work, I'm sure with people that you're working with all the time. patients and whatnot, that it's the thing that falls away first. And I love how aligned we are. I just was, there's a coach a long time ago, a mentor of mine that I was working with in the nutrition space. And I, at one point was like, oh, I need to have a little more like support of this and that. And he said, I know you now. And the push that you need is pushing yourself. And
Right.
it just stuck with me. You know how something just lands sometimes? And it was also just, I think I realized in that moment that I was looking a bit for that like external, help me along the path. It's like, if you're going to be a professional in this industry, I have to at some point like push you out of the nest. You know what I mean? Even if it's you land on your booty.
You do. And I think the best thing that I've learned to not embrace and justify is excuses. Excuses are kind of like the backside of Rosie the pig. The closer you get to the backside of Rosie's, rear, the pig, the more it stinks. And so we begin to become excuse ridden, excuse addicted. And over the course of time, that becomes identifying for who we are. Because if we say that enough times, we believe it, and it justifies our misbehavior. I've seen this over and over again. We almost talk ourselves into justification of misbehavior or lack of discipline. And it needs to flip. We need to take today and say, you know what, from this point forward, I am a person of discipline. And you say it until it becomes true. And you fake it until you make it. Despite what the feelings of emotions will say to you, you got to walk past those things.
Yeah, beautifully put. So we're here to kind of talk and have this conversation about tools that we can add into our lives. And one of them I know that we're very aligned on. And a lot of the conversation I want to have with you is around, one of the most easy health tools that I've put into my life in the last year and a half plus even now, which is molecular hydrogen. And so I just wanted to talk a bit about, how you got to explore and discover molecular hydrogen in the first place, and really what kind of efficacy you see in your life, and why you're as much of a fan of it as I am, because I know you are.
I am. I get into this in a unique way. My studies focus a lot on genetics, and I've understood the aging process as it relates to our genetics. And just a little brief background, we have about 25,000 genes, and we are 99.9% alike as humans. But when that mom and dad get together, it's like two potatoes that smash together and make a new mashed potato. And that 23 chromosomes of each mom and dad are wound up together in that double helix structure in the nucleus of all of our cells. And that structure is really a blueprint for the manufacturing process of proteins. And the proteins sort of make function in life. They create organs and organ systems and tissues, etc. So that blueprint or that cookbook of those recipes is important. Inside of our cells, there is this little organelle called the mitochondria, which people would refer to as the mighty mitochondria, because it actually promotes and makes energy the power for that cell to operate, to even unwind those recipes and roll them out to be secured and manufactured. And so in my studies of understanding that, I realized that this whole process that takes a lot of energy, genetically speaking, there are various levels of waste products that are created between each of us. And the waste products I'm referring to is something called free radicals. So free radicals have little purposes, Kristen. So we don't want to say they're all bad, because I frankly, and I don't think anybody understands every single thing that every single thing does. Some things don't make sense. I mean, I've even threatened to write a book sometime that's entitled God Made Parasites Too. I mean, I don't understand what they all do, but there's something that is beneficial to everything. We just got to find it. And so I realized, looking at the genetic component of everything, that we do create free radicals, and some people mop them up or manage them better than others. And therein lies the aging process. Enter hydrogen or molecular hydrogen technology. And this is back probably 10 years ago now, before I knew about molecular hydrogen that could be put in water, and probably before it was even invented, at least the mechanism to do that. I was using these little elemental magnesium dissolvable caps that sort of would
Yeah,
blend in.
same.
Yeah, they would blend like Alka-Seltzer and create this bubbling gray water that was molecular hydrogen. And I would drink that, and I realized that, as studies told me, that hydrogen was the only thing. I mean, I use that word only in the purposeful way. It was the only thing that could selectively mop up and turn excessive free radicals into water. And I thought, how cool is that? And so it worked out where I started doing that. I would keep these little tablets on my desk, and I'd pop them in there, and I'd look at them, and I would always like look at it, and I'm like, I'm going to drink that, whether it tasted great or not. And I would do it. And I realized that that fit with what I was trying to do to slow the cellular aging process down, to make us younger, older, so that we could be well more often. And that's kind of how my journey began.
Yeah, it's really, I have a little bit of a similar path, certainly not as many years, but yeah, it was like 5 or 6 years ago that I sort of discovered those magnesium style pills that create, it's always interesting to explain it to someone where you're like, it creates the hydrogen gas. You want the gas, not the water. Like, don't put it in there and walk away for 2 hours and then come back. And I did really find huge benefits from it on travel and with jet lag, and just in many, many ways that it supported my lifestyle. And also it was like a little bit interesting to have that weird gray glass of stuff on your
Stain your glass the whole bit,
Yeah, and then working really to manage the free radicals in the system. And then for me, I just want to speak briefly to my experience, like going through years of utilizing that, researching. I got involved in a board that was with a brand that was, hey, how do we bring this to the public? How do we educate people? Because it can be more challenging. It looks like a supplement. You don't just put it in your mouth, all the things. And then really discovering the power of it, and then recognizing that, I want to say gap, just like there's always more, right? There's always more in the research. There's always more. And trying to dig in to find something like I have now with the Hydrofix. With the machine that I use is the Holy Hydrogen Hydrofix. And I talk about it a lot on social because it's an easy add-in. But to me, this was the challenge, was to say, I'm more of a layman than you are in many regards. Of course, I know a ton, and I do coach people in various different lifestyle choices and wellness. And at the same time, there's this plethora of marketing BS in the world. Yeah. And there's this, how do I discern between, are the tablets going to get me there? And what is ppm? I mean, I kind of knew what parts per million was from working a bit with some brands, but just really finding a brand that I could trust, really not just, I work in the world of like ice bath coaching and breath work and things quite often. And a lot of times people are like, what's the best ice bath? And it's like, well, here's this reality that everybody and their brother right now is selling one of those, and it's coming from the same valley and, in some place in the world that they're all built. It's like one factory or whatever's happening. So how do we decide who to trust, and how do we decide what for a high value product, who is using high value parts, components, and really research and medicine behind it, if you want to call it medicine, or the knowledge base of like a chief science officer, et cetera, to say, this is working, can sit on your counter, this can create this ppm over the long haul. That was a really difficult choice for me to be able to find, I don't know how you initially stumbled upon. Can you share how you stumbled upon, or why you sort of decided, the spoiler alert is, I know that you're using Holy Hydrogen Hydrofix as well. And that's like, part of the reason to have this conversation. But how did you get down that path and say, oh, this is the one, and this is why I'm switching off those pills into something that is more, repeatable, usable?
Well, first of all, those pills, they do work, they do create, at least the saturation point, which is 1.6 parts per million with hydrogen in water. And they get expensive because you need to be doing 2 or 3 or 4 of those a day, typically. And at $2 or $3 a piece, you're looking at a pretty good chunk of money that's spent daily. But I had hundreds of people using those things. And then one day I was approached by actually a guy named John and his son, which are involved with Holy Hydrogen, the Hydrofix machine. And I was at an event, and I could see it in their eyes. They had approached other docs about this technology, and they came up to me and said, "Hey, have you heard of molecular hydrogen?" And I said, "Well, sure I have." And I started rattling off stuff, and their eyes got big, because I thought I could see in their eyes, we found somebody that understands, And so I couldn't find at the time any machine that I was happy with, because I'm kind of a quality nerd. I'm anal in that. I could not find a quality machine that would create the necessity of what I was looking for. I wanted the saturation point to be met or exceeded. I didn't want any heavy metals in that. I didn't want any other thing in that other than the water carrying the molecular hydrogen. That's what I wanted. And I wanted to make sure it was something that was going to last. I didn't want some cheap knockoff anything. And I used the Vitamix story a lot. You can buy a blender, but that blender may be cheap and it may not have any warranty to it. And you may get a good 6 months or a year out of it, but you're going to buy another one soon enough. And so that's kind of how my mind worked. I didn't want that. But when I started looking at what they had to offer, I did my due diligence. And one of the key clues is, I'm not knocking our country at all when I say this, is America is home for knockoffs. America is home for manufacturing cheap stuff based upon the naivety of the customer. They do it in supplements all the time and other things, and it's sad. So I started looking at it, and I wanted something that had good manufacturing materials. So I didn't want heavy metals leaching in that water. I didn't want manufacturing parts that would break down on me. I wanted something that was durable, that made sense, and had the proper efficacy and accuracy with testing ahead of time. And I wanted something I could trust. And I gave those guys a chance, and I made no promises to them. I will be either their greatest supporter or their greatest critic, because I don't like junk, straight up. And I had that conversation with them, and they know that. But the more I got into this, I realized that was the machine that I wanted. And I didn't ask anybody. My wife and I made that decision. We purchased one ourselves. They did not give me one to talk about it. I purchased one myself, put it in my home. I started using it myself, and I quickly transitioned away from those capsules. And I found myself drinking more hydrogen infused water, and I found myself recovering better. And I'm a workout fiend. I do my job. I live it out. And I found myself being able to do more of what I needed to do to be able to serve my fellow man. And for me, it was like transition. And that's how I got started in it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so cool. It's like, I'm going to grab my glass and pour myself as we're talking about. The thing that I love is the thing you just made the point about drinking more, right? The pills for me were very much like, it's a certain time of day, or maybe I forget, or like I'm on the go, or like if I was traveling quite a bit, especially in the beginning when I first discovered this, and I'd be like, damn, the bottle's at home on the counter, et cetera, et cetera. And so just expounding a bit on the benefits in general that you've seen, or that we I've read a decent amount of research, because I'm a bit like you. I'm like particular about what's going to be in my home, et cetera. Just to expand a bit on like some of the major wins that you're seeing from use of molecular hydrogen, maybe in your body or your clients or your family, to share with the audience. There's another episode that we've done all about hydrogen, to the basic 101, but I'd love to hear sort of your viewpoints on the wins you've seen.
Well, I look at it like this. It's a no-brainer, because hydrogen is the smallest unit on the molecular periodic table of elements. And so one neutron, one electron, one proton. And so because of its size, as water is carried into your body, it's going to permeate every single molecular opening with no barriers, meaning it's going to get right inside of the mitochondria. So I want to have more cellular energy and energy in reserve and less cellular waste, or more or less cellular senescence, or these damaged cells that are floating around. And so when I do this, it goes into the tool bank or the toolbox of everybody, because we have to have water to survive. The body is 65% water, and we have to drink water to survive. You can't live without it. So I'm going to make my water count. And to me, this is the most no-brainer thing that I have ever came across. It's so easy that your 2-year-old should be doing it. And so moms, if you're out there, please hear my heart. Your 2-year-old should be drinking molecular hydrogen water. Now, this is a big deal, because when I put this into my patients and my wife's patients' repertoire, and I simply tell them to get me at least 3 glasses a day. That's just my little rule. Get me at least 3 glasses a day of at least 8 to 12 ounces of molecular hydrogen water. And they do more, and again, the studies don't really dictate whether more is better or anything. But there's no negative studies out there right now about more being not better. And so what I check in our office and our clients around the globe is I want to see what free radicals are doing to my lipids. In other words, are they damaging my lipids, exacerbating, starting, or continuing a heart disease process? Okay, so that's one thing. And then I also want to test, I check a bunch of age clocks or aging clocks, such as the Dunedin clock, the mitotic clock, the glycan age clock, your omics clock. So check all of those. So I'm able to tell, at least by some of those tests, though there's still to be determined the efficacy of those things. I found them to be quite modifiable. In other words, I found it to be able to slow my pace of aging, even from an immune pace of aging, and age less rapidly, being younger, older, and perhaps dying younger, older. And so it is very routine for us to see here, for the people that do this diligently, far less damage in the lipids that leads to less cardiovascular disease processes. That's a big deal, because it's still the number one killer. And then also I see reduced biological aging pace, processes, and speeds. And I've got several clients here that we have that are aging 10 to 20 years to a junior of their chronological age comparably. And it's fascinating to me of what we can achieve. And one of our basic things we do with that, Kristen, is the molecular hydrogen water. And it's one of the things that I put on every single person. Now, I can't, it's so simple, I can't get every person to do it. Sounds crazy, they won't. But we have many that do. And I've seen specifically, I put this technology on 2 current NFL players. Obviously, I can't mention their names, but they start. They are on the first team. One's on offense, one's on defense. And I watched them in year 1 struggle to be on the field because of injuries. They just kept, it's a violent sport. But I watched them year 2 stay on the field injury-free. Now, can I attribute it directly to utilizing molecular hydrogen? I can't, because life is full of a lot of things. But I can definitely say that that's one thing that they did that I pushed them to do, and they were consistent on that for the last season. And so I expect that to continue. And our clientele here is of the same mindset. I try to take the athletic mindset and keep them, quote unquote, on the field more often. And so those are routine things I see, along with, disease reversals and things like that. I mean, those are kind of normal for us. And it's classic because we have to drink water. So I think, again, I'm very happy with this, and I don't see a reason why people don't do it.
Yeah. And the one chat I'm always I want to say preaching about a bit, is to make sure that people are doing their best to get the best quality water they can to put in the machine so that they're actually,
Yes,
yeah. So it's a real like hydration, it's been filtered and it's all the things. So, everyone has different values and different ways to do that in their homes, whether it's machines or under counter filtration, et cetera, et cetera. There's just so much. Like if you go and you look at some of these websites that rank the water in your local cities, you got to, it's a good place to start so you know what your water quality is like before you put it in the hydrofix.
indeed. I like the reverse osmosis, and you can, a lot of the filtration companies out here will come to your home and they will actually test your water for you. But I've been a kind of a water analyzer for a long time, because our water today, it has a lot of drugs in it, a lot of chemicals,
Yeah.
a lot of endocrine disrupting chemicals in it, and it's just really a troubling situation we've got, especially when you go in and take a hot shower or a hot bath and your pores open up and there it goes inside of you, all of that, and we're seeing a lot of disturbances within, especially children today, in a lot of different areas with this. And so I've been adamant about bringing in good filtered water, good filtration systems, drinking more water because you have to have it, and then making sure that we are not missing this piece that could be a significant missing link to being able to build and have resilience in the world that we live in. I can't fix the population, the pollution problem. I can't fix a lot of this. I mean, we all have to live in this world, man. So what can I do to become resilient? And the water is one of the things that I can do, and one thing that I can encourage other people to do.
Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful. It's the whole cycle. And to me, it's the low hanging fruit that really, and also it sits on my counter, right next to my desk. And I just can make sure it's full, and I can tell you go to the gym, obviously, because you're talking about it, but also for people who are just listening. Dr. Mark's quite fit, and he looks like, I don't know, a linebacker. I don't know any positions in football. I'm always like sports ball, but
oh boy.
So it's always good to see, right? Well, this is also proof in the pudding. I can't tell you how many times in my life that I would show up to a general practitioner in my younger years or something, and I'd be like, this is the person who's going to tell me about health. This person is not healthy, I wanna just check in, and whether it's with the football, the NFLers, or with your clients, are you utilizing the water solely as drinkable? Or are you using breathable nasal cannula, which is just a fancy word for a way to inhale it? And how are you, like, when's the appropriate time to do that? There's questions that I get about, like, is it going to keep me awake at night for sleep? And when do I use the inhaler instead of the water? And just want to get some clarity on maybe protocols from you for that.
I've tried it both ways, and I'm one that, and my wife and I are kind of known for this. Nothing goes into our client base until it's gone through and into our bodies. And I mean nothing. So we analyze things in our own lives. So I've tried all different protocols myself, and we kind of come up with our own stuff based upon clinical knowledge of what it did in our own lives and what we see. So, I told you at the beginning, I don't really trust anybody else's stuff until I experience it, because everybody has bias, right? And so try to eliminate bias, but I can't, once I'm convinced of something, it's going to be in me until I'm proven otherwise, right? But I'll listen. So what I have learned with this, for people that work out or not, is I want to do it when I first wake up in the morning. Okay. I want to get a glass of the molecular hydrogen water first thing in the morning. And if I work out, I want to get a glass post-workout. That's important to me, because that's going to help me in recovery, right? Because if I can reduce the free radicals, I'm reducing also the concurrent and congruent inflammation, allowing my body to recover and rebuild, restore, regenerate faster. And I like to do it before bed, right? So that during my bed, when I have this brain, this lymphatic drainage system where my neurons are being cleaned out, there's free radicals in the brain too. I want my brain to be able to recover, restore well. I want my brain health to be there, because I don't want to become a decrepit, senile old man that can't remember anything. So I'm thinking about all that. So that's a time I like to do it. the liquid does not stimulate any way, keeping me awake. I probably sleep better because I include that. And I do drink more than that during the day as I do. I just kind of drink it all day and don't worry about it, right? But at minimum, I like about 24 to 30 ounces of that per day in 3 different servings, okay? At minimum. Now, as far as breathing it through the cannula, it's a little tube that plugs into the machine, the base of it, and the cannula goes right up your nose, right here. It hooks right there. I've tried that even before bed. I've tried it post-workout. I've tried it morning. First of all, before bed, about 15 minutes, I find that it helps me sleep deeper, okay? Now, what is depth of sleep? That's defined by the individual's interpretation of what that means, right? But I do that before bed because I'm thinking again, I want to get that air, I want to get that hydrogen into my mucosal membranes up here and in my brain. I want it to cross the blood-brain barrier. If something comes in this opening here, it's going to cross your blood-brain barrier faster. So I want that to help me with my brain inflammation and brain recovery at night. So I like that in about 15-minute windows, 1, 2, 3 times a day again. And again, there's not necessarily a clinical research-driven protocol regarding what I just said. But I've known that in our observations, those rotations right there work very well for people. Not to say you can't do more. I know people that sit there during the day and work on their computer that don't interact with people and have the cannula running up their nose. It's great. And I will say this to you. This is fascinating. I was with the NFL team chiropractors recently in Indianapolis at the Combine. And I was there for one reason, to educate them on this technology, because their players were bringing it to them for questions. And so I pitched the idea to them and these ideas. And I haven't told many people this, but it was a crazy cool idea, I thought, as I'm standing there in front of these 20 odd chiropractors, that have their own little logos on, right? I pitched the idea that when these players are sitting on the side of the road, on the sidelines there and breathing in oxygen, why don't you bleed a little bit of hydrogen in there and help them with prevention of TBIs, I mean, eyes got big and they're like, oh my goodness, this is a whole area of exploratory potential, right? And then I also pitched it in their ice baths. Why don't you put hydrogen water in there and let them just soak in that, right? Their eyes got big again, right? What about when they do a sauna, bleed a little hydrogen in there? And so I think the potential is out there even more, for more stuff, for more opportunities. But from a protocol standpoint, when I just lined out that 3-3, 3-3-3% principle, that tends to work really well for me and our patient base.
Yeah, that's so exciting. That story's so exciting. I work with some university teams, and it's like to start to see the dots get connected with the university teams. I worked in the world of MMA and stuff with people. It's like, when it's starting to hit and expand, that will continue to trickle down. And also there's something about it's either the funding or the power of that voice, or, sports really speaks to people, and then they see things on the sidelines, just general population and fans and all of that. And I always think, hey, okay, now red light therapy is hitting, or, hydrogen's starting to hit. That hearing that is so beautiful, because it sort of leads into my next question, which is, why isn't this just more popular? It's pretty easy to navigate. You don't have to leave your house for it. It's got, some medical backing and FDA approval and all the things. Like where's the hiccup in the system that this isn't just more discussed? I look at the research at the Molecular Hydrogen Institute. They've done a lot. I know Tyler W. LeBaron very well. Like I look at, there is enough substance. So why is this not, more woven through the population?
I think that it's not going to be embraced by our medical establishment. And I'm not being a negative, cynical naysayer here. I'm just talking about the practical aspects of it, because people don't make money for the system. They don't. Yeah. It is truly about profits over people. And I'm not knocking pharma either. I think our technology out there and research in that area is brilliant. And we try to embrace both worlds of it. We have great, excellent acute care systems within the United States healthcare system. But these are more sick care system, and they are very poor, and they don't get any training. And my wife would verify this in the ability to prevent disease process. So this goes right to the very core issue of prevention, right? If you talk about the core issue of prevention, it goes against the grain. It's counterculture. It's a cultural disrupting technology that's so disrupting because it's so basic. You talk about this, and let's just imagine for a moment if 100 million people started putting molecular hydrogen machines in their home, which that's not the whole population of our 6 or 7 billion, but let's say 100 million. What does that mean for the 100 million expenditures towards and into the sick care system? It would mean a mitigation or lessening of that. And why would a for-profit system, which is our system, embrace that? Because it's like teaching them how to not use them anymore. So it results in net money lost, net income lost, net proceeds decreased, or net profits going down. And I think that, sad to say, that's where that is. You look at data points across the world. Japan, for example. Japan has less cancers than America. Why? Could it be that this type of technology is more mainstream over there? Could it be that they don't allow within their foods that are distributed to that country some of the ingredients the EPA allows in our country? All this stuff goes into our think tank, if you will, as to why it's not happening. I've encouraged people and continue to encourage people, Kristen, to embrace the continued development of this. It's not an alternative system. This is traditional system. Medicine today is alternative care. People need to flip that around. That is not mainstream. That's only been around 100 years. The last I checked, we were drinking water since the beginning of time.
Yeah.
You see, this is so traditional that we need to embrace this once again and re-engage it, start investing our time, our money, our talents, our efforts, energies into this area. And I think that my wife and I kind of lean more towards we're functional medicine and highly trained in, the nutrigenomics, nutrigenetics, hormone therapy, peptide therapy. We do all that stuff, but we lean more towards the biohacking space, the curious space. How can we optimize the biological aging processes speed? And that subculture, if you will, that I just define as probably a good group of people listening right now. They are the true trailblazers in reestablishing this traditional system that has been mankind's health salvation for the eons of time. And so I think rather than to think about why aren't they changing over here, the change needs to occur in here, in our own homes, in our own lives. And that's how you bring about change. And so to steal a little line from the Michael Jackson philosophy, you want to make a change, you got to change the man or the woman in the mirror, and I think that means that what do? We bring in the right water in our home. We consume the right water in our home. We, through word of mouth, through podcasts, through this little subculture, we establish a culture of wellness. And that pattern is going to speak louder because it's person's stories, it's testimonies. It's no one can deny a person's story because it happened to me, it happened to you, it happened to Jane, Mary, and John. And that's how we can make it better. That's how we can see it mainstream.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's the incentives are wrong in the system that is existing right now. That's the challenge. I want to, the one other thing that bubbled up to me is that someone I was talking to, there's a client that works with one of the Hydrofix machines, and in the early days was like, oh, I'm putting it in the blender with my protein shakes. And I was like, let's not put it in the blender maybe, because we're crushing all the gas. So I just put a shout out to people who are listening to this. If you're like thinking about the machine or have the machine in your home to like don't blend out the good stuff.
No,
There's all these little things we learn over time. And I love also that you said it earlier about people who aren't on calls all day. Like in the biohacking world, if I have a biohacker, a group meeting or someone in the health optimization space in this way, we get on and half of us have like things on our face or red lights in the background or nasal cannulas in, and it's just so fun to be able to explore. I will wear the nasal cannula and breathe in the gas while I'm doing like a work day that I have a lot of like admin and things where I need more focus. I think it's super helpful. And then for everyone in the world who's also listening, who loves breath, it is a strong reminder for me to soften and close my mouth and just nasal breathe while I'm working and not hold my breath. So it's this really great reminder to, I'm getting the hydrogen gas from the Hydrofix in me, as well as it's a reminder to be like, am I soft in my shoulders? Am I softly just keeping my mouth closed? Am I breathing easily? Or am I, that hot fire email comes in and it's like, oh, okay. It's a little device that keeps me grounded. So more than one, it's not even just the gas that's helping. It's just the use of the machine in many ways.
I'm really glad you said that, because what I've used it for when I breathe is to push my breath down and do more diaphragmatic breathing. It makes me think about it because I've got this device in my nose, and it's just like, when you turn it on and it's near you, it's got this blue light that is on, and it illuminates the gas, and it, and from a curious standpoint, it looks cool. It draws your attention that way.
Like
really
science nerd stuff. Yeah.
That's like, that draws attention. That's a great conversation piece when you have somebody at your house. We have one in our office here, and it's a great conversation piece. What is that? And then it opens the door. So there's that. But when it's in your nose, I am also conscious of closing my mouth, relaxing my shoulders, keeping my chest relaxed, and pushing the breath down and practicing more diaphragmatic breathing, which forces me into and out of the sympathetic dominant side of my mind and the stress, into more the parasympathetic, which is more relaxation, which frankly opens a door to more ability to critically think through things, make better decisions, and not be all emotionally reactivity driven, but more proactive and more thought-provoked driven. And I find that that's also a nice adaptive way to sort of form a habit that leads to other habits, that leads to other benefits.
Yeah. So it's beautiful. It's a nice layering, a little scaffolding. Never heard. It's like stack your hacks.
Stack your hacks is a good term. I'm going to use that one sometime.
Yeah. I'm so fortunate to have you on the show and really to be able to talk about all of these things. Really understanding the best use, understanding all the things you talk to us about when it comes to free radicals and how this is functioning, like antioxidant properties, energy, focus, all the things that come along with utilizing hydrogen water. And just that we both get to nerd out about the Holy Hydrogen Hydrofix machine and how we have it and keep spreading the good word. I think that's so amazing. I always close the show with a question, and that question is, and it sort of speaks to your point about, feeling and staying younger as you get older. But if you are picking up the phone tomorrow and you make a phone call, and on the other end of the phone, it's you 30 years ago picking up, and you can only say one thing about, hey, this is the nugget I'm going to give you about how you can step into your best wellness and continue to have a full, rich life and longevity. What's the thing that you say? What's the advice that you give yourself?
That's a very good question. I think it would be talking to my younger self. Stay the course. Don't get distracted with the things that don't matter. Keep the big picture in focus and stay the course. That would be my one little nugget.
I love it. Spoken like a man who understands discipline. I vibe with you so much. I'm so glad we got a chance to have this chat, and I feel quite aligned with your mission and your message. And I'm going to share this podcast far and wide. And if there's anything else I can do to support you, by all means, please let us know. Will you also let listeners know sort of where they can find you?
Yeah, I appreciate that. They can find us at Sherwood.tv. That's kind of our main website. We rotate our banner with different things. And so just we're here to serve people, Kristen. We've got a lot of free stuff. We've got books and movies that are out there as well that can bring, good, wholesome information, entertainment into your homes. We need more of that today, right?
Yeah.
So are very science based, and just a little tidbit, genetics tell me a story. And everybody needs to know out there that the most common genetic arrangement, or SNP, it's a whole different discussion for a different day, of course, but we do not commonly manage and dismantle our free radicals well as a population. Thereby, hydrogen, molecular hydrogen, is not just a good idea, although it is, in my mind, mandatory to maintaining a good health as it relates to the aging process.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's one of the key pillars to shifting the game for so many people. So thanks for bringing your wisdom, your knowledge, your experience, and everything that you do. I love that service is your medicine. I align with that. So thank you so much for being here. And yes, Sherwood.tv and holyhydrogen.com. And everybody can just start to dig into their water game and level up.
Yep. Appreciate you.